Okay, now recording, whenever you're ready.
So I want to start off by asking a question. When is it too soon to tell a joke about a tragedy or something sad has happened? I was over Memorial Weekend. I was fishing on Lamar, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, Lake Travis has to be just thinking right now like, I'm so full. I can't do anything you guys see here, and just comprehend what's happening to me. I mean, it got so much, and I kind of feel, honestly, I feel bad for the other lakes. I mean, it's just so much water compared to like the other places. They just got so little. I mean, Lake Buchanan's got to be sitting there like, this is bullshit. I mean, Lake Travis is getting everything. I got nothing. People in Lake Travis can buy all that water if they need to and be fine. I mean, these are all jokes about the Memorial Day floods over Memorial Day, which were pretty devastating. Many people lost their lives, a lot of people lost their homes and their businesses, and yet, some of them are still kind of funny. If I told a joke about 9/11, would it be funny as well? That's kind of where I started my basis of my argument. And when I first started this argument, I thought that I was going to find a definitive answer to when it was going to be. I thought I was going to have to go all loss on it. Carry the 3, take the log of how many people died minus the factorial times, the days after the tragedy, and figure out exactly when it happened. But it's really a lot more complicated than that. And the first thing I started out, I thought someone would have a scientific answer, and there have been a lot of studies done, a lot by psychologist named Peter McGraw, who works at University of Colorado Boulder, and he did a study right after the Hurricane Sandy, the hurricanes, in New Jersey, and he used he used a Twitter account called @HurricaneSandy. It was like pretending to be the hurricane, and it tweeted out things like, "Yo, just blew the roof off the Olive Garden, free breadsticks for everybody," and things like that, which kind of stupid comedy. And he tested the people in New Jersey before it happened and after it happened to see when they thought it would be the most funny. And what he found was that it was 36 days after the tragedy when people thought it was the most funny. And so he thought this was his answer to when things were the most funny. And it works for this tragedy. I don't think his science is wrong, but I just don't see how that's very applicable. I mean, it's not like every comic was like pen at the ready 36 days after Sandy Hook. But, I mean, they have to really like look at, by the way, I'm sorry, I'm going to make you guys really uncomfortable during this. Not really uncomfortable, maybe a little uncomfortable. And that's part of what comedy is, I mean, like a lot of comedians say that their job is to figure out, like, socially, what's okay and what's not okay to talk about in, like, the realms of social activity. And so they'll kind of push that boundary a little bit, and if they can try to edge right on that line, that's when it becomes really funny. And I'll give you an example. So if I right now was just like, man, I really wish that John Kerry had won the election in 2004. I thought he put up a good fight. I thought he had a lot of money, and I thought, I guess hindsight's 20/20. I mean, Bush did an okay job before that. So 9/11 happened, and he helped us through that, and I guess so it kind of makes sense. 4 more years, but I just think John Kerry would be a decent president. Like, that would suck, right? I mean, there's nothing funny about that. There's nothing like edgy about that. There's nothing that makes it kind of like on the edge of the realm. If I came up here and I did a skit where I was like, man, I was born in the wrong generation. Because if I grew up in the 60s, if you didn't like someone, you could just shoot them. I mean, it was kind of like the Wild West. It didn't matter who it was. I mean, one guy was just sitting at home one day and drinking a beer, just like, you know what? I don't like JFK that much. I think I'm going to shoot him. And then he did. The President of the United States just shot him. And then a couple hours later, someone was like, hey, I like JFK, so I'm going to shoot the guy that shot JFK. I mean, the guy, like, Martin Luther King got shot in the 60s, right? He was probably the most likely person in the world to get assassinated. Like, if I took a quiz and they were like, who is the most likely person to get assassinated? I'd be like, definitely that guy. And he had security guards, and everybody knew that someone was going to try to assassinate him, and they still couldn't stop it. And it's not like it was just the crazy racist either. I mean, George Wallace got assassinated, and he was probably the most racist dude ever. So it was pretty crazy, and I guess people can still do that to this day, but it's pretty crazy. So something like that. See, it's a lot more. It's a lot more. It's got that little edge to it, and that's kind of what makes it keep funny. And that's what we like to call that is benign violation, and that means that it's something that violates like a known moral code of yours, like oh, that's kind of on the edge of wrong or right, but at the same time, it's benign to you, like it doesn't affect you personally. So in that way, that makes it really funny. And obviously, what affects someone personally is different for each person. So what might be a benign violation to one person might just be a strict violation to another. Which is why when you're telling a joke, one thing that really matters is you have to remember who you are and where you are. Because if I came up now and I did a whole skit on like Irish stereotypes, and I did like a funny skit about how my drunk uncle and how my mom almost got kicked out of the family because she didn't bring potatoes for Thanksgiving, something like that, it'd be pretty funny. Just like Jewish comedian Sarah Silverman goes on a lot of kind of more anti-Semitic rants and tells Holocaust jokes, and they're kind of acceptable. Just like Key and Peele parodies black culture. It's when you're in that culture, it's a lot more acceptable, especially when you're telling your joke to people of that same kind of culture and area, because they see that. That's where a lot of what I've noticed in my research is a lot of comedians get in trouble is when they go on like a national. They try this thing that's a little more edgy on this like more national scale, where people can get more easily offended. A good example of this, a couple years ago, Chris Rock was on SNL, and he did a monologue skit, and he made some 9/11 jokes in it, and it got very heavy backlash. But what I always find interesting in that is Chris Brown is a native New Yorker. I mean, he's been in New York for almost his entire adult life and almost his entire comedy life. And comedians, like, when they go on, if they're going on a big stage like SNL, it means that they've tried these jokes at comedy clubs around where they are. And he's in New York. So he's tried these jokes in New York, around New Yorkers, and he's gotten, positive thinking. So the people that got offended from it were mostly people offended on behalf of New York, not the people from actually New York. But you really just have to know where you're doing it. So if I wanted to make a joke about Mr. Sharp's crazy indie hairstyles and stuff, right? I would want to do it in a place where people who knew Mr. Sharp's, maybe current students, maybe former students, and also I would want to do it when he's there, because I wouldn't want to get his feelings hurt. I guess that one doesn't really apply because Mr. Sharp doesn't really have feelings, but still, you get the point. And at the end of the day, a comedian's not trying to hurt your feelings. I mean, if there's a comedian who was trying as hard as he could to hurt your feelings or to make you offended by something, he wouldn't be in comedy very long. I mean, he's there to make you laugh. Actually, I found a study. Miss Graber found a study. I looked for a study, but Miss Graber found a study talking about researching the frequency of 9/11 jokes after the tragedy in the early months after, like late September, early October, where they were being made the most. And the answer is not it was the Danish. The Danish were telling the most 9/11 jokes after, and that's so crazy to me. I can't even the Danish. What did we ever do to the Danish? I thought the Danish were just a bunch of little cute Scandinavian guys, blonde hair, made good pastries. But that's just savage. They told more 9/11 jokes than the Middle East and all the Middle Eastern countries combined, and that's crazy to me. I understand that. Not everyone in the middle, not the majority of the people in the Middle East are not radical Muslims, but the people that are, they had to be making tons of those. That was their greatest achievement. Obviously it's sick and twisted and stuff, but to them, that had to be awesome. How could they not rub it in our face? When I win a baseball game, I try to rub it in the other team's face. Bin Laden must have loved 9/11 jokes, but not as much as the Danish. The Danish just run around with their soccer balls on the way to IKEA or whatever, just figure out new 9/11 jokes, apparently. And this is what I've kind of found most interesting about comedy is that it is really perspective on the person and on where you are. me and Osama bin Laden probably don't have a lot in common. So we probably don't, eat the same food, or play the same sports, or have the same recreational activities, or watch the same comedy sketches on Netflix. So it's really, what I figured out, the key answer to my question is that no joke is really too soon, as long as you remember your audience and your content, and you make sure that the content is making fun of the right things and not things that could be more easily offended. If you're offending more people in the room than you're making laugh, then you've done something wrong. Hopefully you've learned something today. If I've made you laugh too, then you're welcome. And if I offended you, I'm not sorry.